Hey everyone. So let's talk about God or the lack thereof. So traditionally in the West, right, in the kind of English-speaking world or in the kind of European-ish world, etc., was very intense with the Christianity. Like you must believe in God, and if you don't, you're gonna go to hell, and we're gonna kill you and put you there first. And so that was really intense with the Spanish Inquisition and all this mayhem and madness. And you had really pure versions of Christianity as well, like the Cathars in southern France and or the Albigensians, um, and Gnostics and just early church stuff. In Ireland, say the Celtic Church. Was very influenced by the traditional like kind of like nature worship of the Irish when Christianity evolved out of that or whatever. There was yeah, kind of a blending, but but there's these big structures which came in, and in my humble opinion, the Roman Church, although I'm sure there's many beautiful people doing lots of good things in that over time, and I know lots of beautiful people who have a very strong character and sense of morality, better than and are better people than many others because they are Catholic. It's like a structure. Nonetheless, and Orthodox Christian or whatever, this religion can help you do that. Nonetheless, I think it is a system of social control and mind control to a large extent through time, the Catholic Church and the many of these structures that basically it was used as a way to control the Roman Empire. They brought it in. The Romans were very, very organized. They weren't really so generous about, yeah, let's let everyone reach for the truth. Why did they make that the state religion? And it's give unto Caesar what's due unto Caesar. They edited the books in the Council of Nicaea, threw out a bunch of stuff, added a bunch of stuff in, killed people and confiscated their books if they didn't go along with it. So, realistically. So there's this whole background to religion where in the West it's fair enough that people are like skeptical of that and they want to be kind of maybe avoiding that. And they might see that as backward and old-fashioned and counterproductive. And I think in some sense it is like these days there's some people who are very, but mostly I disagree. I think it's and we're going to get into that. But say like there are people who would be pretty clued on and like, oh, there's all this stuff happening in the world, and yeah, it's not right what's happening here, here, here. But then there's certain things they just will not touch or they will not go further. And I think it's no coincidence that they often mirror the position of the Catholic Church. What is the Pope saying? Or, and if the Pope says, oh, yeah, this is okay, then a lot of these people would find it difficult to allow themselves to go beyond that. But that's not the way it should be. It should be follow the truth at all costs. And it's a compliment to God if you are trusting in the process of the logos and truth, um, rather than what some human is saying, because everyone's flawed, even the members of the church, perhaps especially because it can attract a certain kind of person to there. And even Pope Francis said in an interview that he estimated 1 in 50 priests were pedophiles, right? 2%, which is like about 8,000 out of the 400,000. So, if that guess or estimate is correct, that's like a massive number. So even that alone, so obviously people are flawed. If they're allowing that in, then are we sure that they're what the ideas they're letting in are all totally pure? No, we got to be realistic, right? It's all good to be following God and in the form of an organized religion if that helps you be a good person and connect to God, and if you believe that yeah that actually is the what God has chosen this to express the truth. Um, but you have to also be balanced, I think, and have a reality check about like yeah these are human institutions as well, and they're not perfect. Anyway, so that's the skepticism about God. And so people then go to like, oh, okay, atheism. That's like and this is what I did as like a kid, like, or a teenager. Like, oh yeah, Christianity or religion, Islam, Judaism, whatever. Oh, that's all kind of wacky. You really think there's some guy in the sky, like, Zeus with a big beard who made everything? Atheism is obviously the logical response. But atheism is another religion, right? So that's, the whole point here. That you don't know that nothing exists. You don't know there's no, even like, God, like they're not saying it's necessarily some guy with a big beard in the sky, it could just be God is the whole universe. Everything is God. And I think that is what God is. It's like God is the infinity, the energy, and everything is essentially the infinite energy is God. And on a higher level, it's actually not even really, I guess, infinite, but it's just like a singularity. It's just this is all in God's imagination, essentially. And it's physical, but the physical is part of God's imagination. Everything's within God. and simulation theory and like quantum physics and all this stuff kind of converge on like, oh, it's all just like consciousness. Anyway, so if you no one's died, someone's like, yeah, atheism. There's no evidence that God exists, therefore I should be an atheist. But it's like, what's it like? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And it's totally possible that you just don't have the evidence, but God actually does exist. You haven't, so you would have to die and then go, yeah, there's nothing here, and then come back and tell us. But obviously, you can't do that. So it's totally possible someone's like, there's nothing there, definitely makes no sense. And then they die, and then, whoa, oh my God, there's all these light beams of light and stuff, and I'm in this afterlife thing. You have no idea. You have no evidence, scientific evidence to prove that that's not the case. So actually, you're making an assumption, and that's okay. You can have your intuitions, you can make assumptions, but you need to be acknowledged what you're doing. So atheism is a religion in that it is the religion of no God. It's like we have faith, we believe, just based on our feelings, that this doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. So we think there's nothing. Okay, fine. But you have to acknowledge the thing is, it's the most religious religion, ironically, because you're a religion and you don't even realize it. Not only are you taking a religious leap of faith, like all these religions do, but you don't even realize you're doing it. That's how deep into the leap of faith you are. You don't realize it's a leap of faith. So, and it happens to make people nihilistic in many cases and kind of selfish. And, you can be very, enlightened and cool and an atheist. It's possible, but you need, I think in general, a lot of people, if, without that structure, it kind of gets a bit like hedonistic and solipsistic, like, oh, I'm the only one that exists or nothing exists, but I'll still be selfish and trying to make more money than other people and whatever, because if it's an illusion, I may as well enjoy the illusion. You get all these weird ideas where it's like, I think basically for me, I'm not like part of any organized religion, but I take the best from all these traditions and try to like learn. But basically, I was raised atheist. My parents are Catholic. They were very alienated by the church. Some bad things happened, and they didn't really appreciate like the way it was being run in Ireland. And then I was raised as an atheist. They didn't. They said believe what you want to believe, but I could figure out they were kind of atheist, and so I kind of fell in line with that. And then, but as I got older, I kind of became like agnostic, which I think is the wise answer. If you're not sure, just if you haven't done enough meditation or psychedelic medicines yet to connect to God, then agnosticism is the logical answer, which is I don't know, maybe. What does an ant know about humans? What do humans know about the universe? Nothing. So it's totally possible God exists or not. I have no idea. Agnosticism, being agnostic. And so that's, I think, that the logical kind of position to begin with. And that's where came to, like, humbling myself, like, yeah, actually, I don't know. It's possible. Anything's possible. And then over time, through meditation and through, like psychedelics, I basically came to have, and through a lot of reading philosophy, I basically came to have these personal experiences where I my ego dissolved and I became aware of the field of consciousness and that I am consciousness. And yes, I'm Jamie, but it's like Leonardo DiCaprio was acting out the character of Jack on Titanic, and they're both real in a way, but Leo is more real because it's a more enduring reality. That in the same way, I am Jamie, that's real, but in a more enduring sense, I am consciousness. That is the thing that never changes. And when I die, I'll still be consciousness. And before I was born, I was already consciousness. And that we are essentially branches on the tree of life. So we are the tree. We are God, but we are part of God. So, we are God experiencing itself in this limited sense in order to, grow and evolve and bloom the beauty of creation. And so, yeah, I kind of now would say I'm spiritual, if you want to put a label on it, although I don't, normally I think labels are useful sometimes, but in general, it's better to avoid them in this kind of topic and just have a direct experience of life, just be here now. And so I think, anyway, so that's the thing, if you but yeah, but I'm totally open to the possibility that maybe Christianity is like, maybe God did actually say, yeah, this is going to be the purest message, here it comes. Or maybe it's Buddhism, or maybe it's something else, I don't know. And I'm open to that. But where my current thing is that I think my greatest act of faithfulness with God is to believe in truth and in the discovery of direct experience, gnosis, of the divine and of truth, and to be that basically the Christ consciousness, awakening your higher consciousness as much as possible and integrating it with yourself as a human being going about your life, having a family and doing normal things or whatever. So yeah, I think atheism, if you want to be atheist, that's cool. But like, I think if you think it through, it doesn't make much sense because you're making a leap of faith, which is exactly the thing you're criticizing. So it's kind of like, whereas Christianity might be a leap of faith, you might think that it doesn't make sense. It's not really self-contradictory. It's just saying it's a leap of faith. But atheism is like, oh, all these people are making these leaps of faith, and that doesn't make sense. So we're going to criticize that and feel like we're morally superior to them because we're so smart. And yeah, we have no evidence for this either. So it's kind of like I think it'd be much better to migrate over to being an agnostic and be like, actually, I don't know, right? And then I can have my feelings about it. I doubt it, but basically, I'm agnostic. I don't actually know. I would accept it as possible, and I could just be in for a shock. And then from there, maybe you would, get into some meditation or whatever, and you can kind of maybe grow from there and um, but or maybe you'll stay atheist, whatever, or agnostic. But anyway, these are some thoughts on that, and I hope that's useful. And I think it's just an interesting thing that it's an antidote also to like kind of this feeling of angst and nihilism that nothing means anything, because people jump to that. But actually, this sense we have that life is inherently meaningful and life is real, the self, we are real, God or love is real, or yeah, not even just about a creator, but just that like love is real, or goodness and kindness and virtue, that happiness, that these are real things. It's not just chemicals in the head. It's not just this materialist reductionist paradigm of everything's an illusion. There's no evidence for that. That's a cult. That's which is totally this dark religion because it in most cases I think it depresses people and takes away their ability to live a happy life. And the truth is, your sense as a child that everything's meaningful is totally at least equally valid as someone's sense that, oh, everything's meaningless. And actually, there's a lot more evidence for that because, for example, just to finish, a very quick summary of like, direct experience of God, go in within and you'll find, oh, be still and know that I am God. You become still and you realize I'm a wave in the sea of consciousness. And so what is that? Is that not God? The whole universe is conscious and I am not separate to it. And so you can have a direct experience of God and then grow from there. And I'm not saying I've had the highest experience, definitely haven't, but I've had enough where I've had a taste of that and transcended myself to the basic, beginner's level. And I'm seeking to grow with that. I have a spiritual practice every day. I want to evolve more, become wiser, but more conscious. But so this final thing to leave you with is a kind of logical argument for the existence of God rather than just direct experience, which is we are conscious, right? You can experience right now. I'm here. I'm sensing things. You're listening to my voice. You're watching me or whatever. So you're here. We know that. Now, first of all, to address the counter argument, or maybe it's an illusion. Okay, if you think it's an illusion, why? That's because you have made a logical argument which says, yeah, I think because of ABC, I think it's an illusion. It doesn't make sense. But in order for that to be logically justified, you needed to become conscious of premise A, conscious of premise B, and conscious that they are logically validly connected to create a conclusion C. So that requires consciousness. It requires understanding. So if you're like, oh no, maybe it's like just like a robot, like it's just I just know. It's like you're getting way off the track into unsupported territory. It's far more likely that you're making far more claims, right? In order to outside of what's everyday experience. So it's moving into like, yeah, possibly, but very unlikely. I would say like, yeah, the fact for this to be an illusion, that means you are aware that it's an illusion. If you are not aware that it's an illusion, then why would you be critiquing my argument? Clearly you are aware that it's an illusion, but then, wait a minute, if I'm aware, then actually I'm wrong, right? It actually is, awareness is real. So I think it's like a snake biting, eating its own tail. It doesn't make sense. So we are conscious. That is the one thing we are sure of. Anything else we know, including doubt about consciousness, that's all happening within the field of consciousness. It's things you're becoming aware of. So that's it. Okay, so we are conscious. That's the one thing we know for sure. And then secondly, everything is one. It's quantum physics, science, they'll tell you, they zoom in on everything. It's all just a sea of energy. It's like protons, electrons, neutrons. Things look different. This is glass, this is, plastic or whatever. But ultimately, they're both made of protons, electrons, and neutrons in different configurations and numbers of them and structures. And so if you zoom in, it's all just the same, protons, electrons, neutrons. And then you zoom in on them, and it's mostly empty space and just it's energy. It's just a sea of energy and vibration. And then actually all of that is just one. It's just this one soup of energy. And ultimately, that's actually just consciousness. It's the well, but that'd be a circular argument. Let's just say there's this energy, it's one. And we know that, like, from you can find that from meditation and things, but also scientists have, concluded that through like physics, etc., cutting edge physics. It's all one. And so ultimately, okay, so we know consciousness is present, consciousness exists, and everything is one. Therefore, the one is conscious or consciousness. Consciousness is one is conscious, right? And so that's God. There you are. All right. Have a great day. Enjoy.